How do I step into my masculinity?
Brandon, how's it going, man?
It's good. How was tea give for you?
Thanksgiving actually was really nice. Like we were actually pretty low key this year. We kind of were supposed to be with like my Rhiannon side of the family, but then people got sick and traveled other places, and so it was pretty just cool with just our family, like our core nuclear family for most of the weekend. It was great.
Nice. Were all the girls there? Or?
Yeah, I got them all to come back, got Maddie and Carson and Lexi to come back up from college, and it's pretty much spent the whole week with us.
Nice.
And yeah, it was great.
Nice. You get out in nature, do a little ice fishing or something?
We did a little bit of that. I got out on a bird hunt with my son-in-law for a couple hours, and that was good.
Nice. Bonding
So
with the son-in-law. I love
yeah,
it.
I'm sure he loved every minute of it.
Hey, does he call you dad?
No, no, he
Hey,
does.
you need to start calling him dad. Like,
Do you hear
like,
that, Carson?
like Carson.
Like Carson,
You,
don't listen to him. You can
you
call me
need to
whatever you
start
want.
calling him dad. Yeah, that's tender.
He has his own
Um,
dad.
Um, well, that's good. I'm glad you had some good time. Sounds like a good holiday.
Yeah, it
So
was nice. Hopefully yours was too.
yeah, it was awesome. So well, we got a man with us here that we love that has attended our retreats and things like that. I'll let him introduce himself. Peter, welcome to the show.
Be here. Yeah, I know you guys a little bit from the retreat and glad to be here.
Yeah. If you could give a little bit of background, a little bit of context for us, and we'll go from there.
So yeah, I'm Peter. I've known these guys. I've been working recovery for about 2 years, and recently a lot of things have changed in life. Not for the better. Some pretty hard things have come up, and so I'd say a lot of who I was has now changed, and I'm now learning who I am on a different level, and working through some one-on-one therapy sessions there at Love Strong, I've come to realize that I don't really know who I am and my masculinity. Growing up, as I think about how I grew up, I my dad is the definition of a nice guy, and I can think of other people that I see as masculine, but I don't see it very much in myself, and want to really want to.
Um, would you mind, and you can share as much as you want to, but you say some changes are happening in your life that's really pushing you to start to dig deep and really look at yourself. Can you talk about some of those things? What's going on?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is my wife has now filed for divorce. We've been married for about 7 years, and we have a little boy who's 2.5. And so that is probably by far the biggest thing. I totally admit I'm very codependent, and I've done a lot of recovery work for her, which hasn't worked. Recovery work has to be for yourself.
Gotcha.
So
So,
now
so
that
Peter, if I'm understanding this, part of what you're saying now is these things in your life are starting to happen. There's this divorce that's impending now. It's sort of shifting the way you've been in your recovery because you said you've been in recovery for 2 years, but you're saying that inside of that 2 years, a lot of your recovery was focused on pleasing your wife or placating her feelings, or it wasn't really all in on you actually reclaiming your life and your heart. And now that this is happening, there's really nothing left to do recovery for other than to take a look at the guy in the mirror and say, who am I and who do I want to be?
some real strong words that have been shared with me recently are a man can be three things in life. He can be a good man, he can be a good father, and he can be a good husband. And I will not have the opportunity right now to be a good husband, so I'm now learning what it means to be a good man and a good father.
Okay. Um, so so I want to dig in a little bit. You talk about really looking at your masculinity. Why would you say that you struggled with that? You say your dad was a Mr. Nice Guy, so that's what was modeled to you. Is there any other trauma or experiences or reasons why you feel like you're showing up weak, or give up examples of that and how that's looked for you?
So one that comes to mind is I have epilepsy. So growing up, I struggled a lot with seizures, and I think because of that, I was babied a little bit. Everyone was always, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? What can we do to help you?" And so I never, I can see myself struggling with learning how to be masculine in that environment.
Hmm.
So you got too much care taken of you, or you got like put in bubble wrap?
I'd say in bubble wrap.
So you're a bubble wrap baby or child with a dad who's a Mr. Nice Guy. That's
Very much, yeah.
okay. Um, and what was relationship like with mom?
Fantastic. My relationship with both my parents is a wonderful relationship.
Okay. And do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have two little sisters.
Two sisters. So you're the oldest and you're the only boy.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. What were some of the struggles in terms of the marriage? Like where was the breakdown of your masculinity? Where were some of the breakdowns in the marriage?
One that comes to mind is I'm not very good with money, but my wife is. She is very good with money, and so rather than help take care of that, I let her take care of that. Um, yeah, definitely her area of expertise, and I know that's something that weighed on her. It was a big responsibility, as well as she set up a lot of appointments for both of us. I agree. I let it be the easy way. She did a lot of things for both of us.
Gotcha. So you kind of sitting back and letting her make all the decisions
Yeah.
and stepping into taking care of life, basically. That's yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of a role model I was given, and it's something that I now know really weighed hard on my wife.
Yeah.
The pressure to manage all of those things.
Mhm.
Okay. Is that so? So Brandon asked a good question. I'm wondering if there's more to it as well, Peter, in terms of like from your perspective, what else broke it down? Was it just your lack of leadership in the home and overall? Was it your lack of self-drive towards your recovery? Was it other things?
I would say definitely lack of self-drive. Um, Things were being taken care of for me, so a lot of things I didn't have to take care of for myself. And yeah, I'd say some lack of leadership. There were definitely some times that my wife wore the pants in the family.
Okay. Um, I imagine, and this isn't to like I don't want to stay here on the relationship side of things, but I can see why over time your wife probably wasn't feeling that safe and that even that attracted to you to want to connect because she wasn't feeling that masculine energy, that essence there that really made her feel safe. So it's really awesome, Peter, that we can sit here and talk about this, and you're acknowledging that yes, I definitely have played a part in this, and I see some of the breakdowns that I have. Right. So you're one step ahead of a lot of people who won't even acknowledge some of their struggles and weaknesses.
I know this is a weird question, Peter, but could I could I ask you like when what comes into your mind when you hear the question like what is a good man? Like, what makes a good man?
A lot of wonderful examples. I'd say that so growing up, as I've thought of this recently, yeah, I don't see my dad as very masculine, but I can think of plenty of men that growing up I saw as masculine. I could say they knew where they were as a person, as where they were with God. They led their family confidently and were successful in life. They looked like they had everything together and enjoyed life.
Success, say have everything together and successful. What does that mean? Like
So sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Think.
One that comes to mind, he was my bishop in church. He was the fire chief. He was a big, strong man, had a wonderful, beautiful family, and you could tell that he knew his power and his strength and his relationship with God, and he openly shared that to help others.
Okay. Tyler, do you have any other questions? I've been grilling Peter here a little bit.
Yeah. So, just so that I hear it then. So, your idea of a good man is a man who knows where he stands with God, a man who leads his family confidently, someone who keeps it together and is successful. And when you define successful, you basically said that you referenced his physical strength, but you also referenced his success in his profession and his willingness to openly share it with other people.
Yeah, yes.
So that would be a rough definition of what a masculine good man is to you.
Yeah, I'd say I see all those aspects in a wonderful good man.
Okay. I think a lot of those things probably line up with what most people's definitions of a masculine good man would be. The reason I ask the question is because sometimes, you know, sometimes there's an ideal of masculinity that is a very narrow bandwidth that isn't actually accurate to what full real masculinity is. But I think some of these things inside your definition are things that what most people would say is falls in the bandwidth of healthy masculine.
Tyler, going along with what you just said, I think like even having like answering this question, I think can be problematic a little bit. Um, because what we do is we say, okay, a masculine man is this, right? And you just described this guy who sounds like a very masculine man, sounds like a great man. Um, and one of the critical elements of healthy masculinity and femininity, for that matter, of being a healthy human being is self-acceptance and self-confidence. And when we bring a certain box in, like you need to fit in this box in order to be the masculine or to be okay, what we do is we try to jump in the box and we try and we try and we try, and maybe that's not who we are or what we are. And then we give up and we don't try anymore, and we should on ourselves and we feel shame, and that all of that tears down your masculinity. And Peter doesn't need to be firefighter guy to be masculine. Peter needs to love and know Peter and be Peter. Um, Whatever that is the most important thing. That's where we need to start. Um, and then we go from there and we say, okay, where is Peter selling out? Where is he? Like he has a truth, he has his intuition speaking to him, he has authenticity there, and he's not being authentic. Whereas Peter's selling out, and then we got to ask why. What fear is in the way from you being you, and understand why you feel like you need to manipulate in order to be loved, right? So do you understand what Tyler and I are saying, Peter?
Yeah, yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying.
No.
Yeah, so I actually kind of want to follow up on your questions there, Brandon, because I think it will lead to some of that discussion that I think Peter's wanting to have here. And it's this idea of, okay, so Peter's coming to us, Brandon, and saying, I don't really know who I am. I want to step into like real authentic masculinity. And your answer to him back is like figure out who you are.
Yeah.
You know? so,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So okay, so then if that's the case, one of the places where we can figure out who we are, and this is where you were talking about, is the places where where I've either experienced rejection or I'm experiencing self-rejection to the point that I'm not showing up in authenticity. Right. So one of the questions is to ask, what are the places where I'm not being authentic?
Because therein lies your opportunity
And there's
for
also some
for the work to
learning.
get to know yourself.
Yeah, there's some learning to happen there into understanding what are the places that feel inauthentic and why am I showing up in those ways? And that's going to lead to maybe some deep inner work, maybe some trauma type work too. But then it's going to also help you then in that wrestle start to sort of settle into going, okay, and I don't have to continue to show up the way that I've shown up my whole life.
Yeah.
So I guess Peter, that would be a question to you is in your life, and this is maybe a little personal and maybe a little bit vulnerable, but where are the places where you feel most compromised?
As far as some things that I think have helped me feel less masculine, my epilepsy, I feel like I've had to have people help take care of me, which helped, like, it's just helped me feel less masculine. It's something that I can't control that I have to have help with, at least for a long, long time. I, with recovery, I have I guess a false core belief I've had for a long time is that I'm a disappointment. I have disappointed people over and over again, and that's all I am. And that part of me is a monster, is uncontrolled, and it's just like it's not something you want to look at and face, really. So
Are
those
you talking about your sexuality
just me as a person. But yeah, I'd say sexuality definitely.
plays into that?
Hmm.
The feeling like a monster and it's uncontrollable.
Yeah, I'd say more sexuality. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
And then I went to college for a little while, and then dropped out to pursue something different. Whereas my dad has a degree, a master's degree. My sister has a degree. My wife has a degree, has two degrees and a master's degree. So educationally, I feel very inferior to them. And again, like a disappointment or a failure.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts. Tyler, go ahead.
I so a lot of that was laced with I'm a disappointment. And part of what we're gathering now is that you were raised in a situation where you were kind of bubble wrapped because you had a legitimate condition. Somehow the message was sent that being taken care of by other people makes you weak or inadequate or not good enough. That led into like this overarching belief that I'm a disappointment to the people in my life that matter the most. Probably, I'm guessing my parents at first, and then maybe my spouse once I got married. And then you compare yourself to being a good person based off of everybody else's accomplishments, education being a big one. Are you gainfully employed, Peter?
Yeah, I'm employed, and I will say I'm very good at my job. I really enjoy it. But I'd honestly say that's probably one area of my life I really do enjoy, and I know I'm good at.
Okay.
It's
What
the
do you
other
do?
parts.
What do you do for a living, Peter?
I'm a mechanical drafter, and I actually just became a team lead at work. So, and I've been there for about 6 years, and I've enjoyed it the whole time.
Okay. Okay. One thing that you said, and this is a tricky one, is you said I'm a monster. And then Brandon asked you to clarify, and you said it was around your sexuality, but it's around other parts of your life too. And I think this is one of the hard parts about for most people, for most men that we work with, one of the hard parts that is having to come to grips with what it means to be a monster. Because most men, their monster part of them has done some things that has caused some damage in the lives of other people that they love and in their own lives. And they grow to hate the monster part of themselves. When in reality, part of the pathway forward is actually getting to know the monster and coming to love the monster and then learning to bridle the monster for good purposes. And too many men just try to kill it or they hate it. And then they're living in self rejection because they're capable of being a monster, when in reality, part of the fact that they can be a monster is what makes them masculine when they learn to bridle it, because that's how you protect a family. That's how you fight for principles of truth. That's how you stand confident in the things that you believe in, is to know that you're capable of being a monster and then to choose to put that energy towards the things that matter most to you. And you probably spend a lot of time running from your monster when in reality it's time to probably get to know it a little bit better and learn to bridle it.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at now. Now that everything I've known is changing and kind of being taken away. All my masks, a lot of masks are now gone. to kind of put it visually, I meet with one of the therapists there at Love Strong, and we had a good therapy session one day that became very visual to me. I can see kind of I'm down to the bare bones. Everything I have has been taken away. And one thing I can see coming into my life is my masculinity now.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of where this question came from is how do I kind of accept it and step into it and accept it in my life?
Peter, did you hear what Tyler just said is so critical? Like what did you hear him say?
Learning to accept what is there. And like, yeah, I've had a monster inside for a long time, and now I know everything I've done is my fault. I've put myself in the situation I'm in, and I have to face it.
Okay. Um what what pisses you off?
Um, I don't know.
What gets your blood boiling?
Right now it's when someone tells me I'm not changing. I'm
O-
not getting better as a person.
Okay, you tell yourself that quite a bit. What when you get your blood boiling, how do you respond? What does that look like?
I don't think I handle it very well. I think I'm very much a sweep it under the rug sort of guy.
Uh-huh. That's what I would guess. What lights you
I
up?
feel like I
Oh,
can push Peter around through the screen right now, Brandon.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, where's the energy? What lights you up, Peter?
I love my job. I love drafting. I love snowboarding. I love baseball and football. Um,
Okay.
I love playing with my son. I
Okay.
Yeah.
Boom, you got some answers to that. That's good. I'm not going to ask you to answer this, but there's also what turns you on in
Mhm.
terms of sexually. What gets you going? What makes you come alive? Now I know when I ask that, that's ripe with all these like feelings of
Oh yeah.
am I bad? Am I a disappointment? Am I okay? But the reality is your sexuality is a part of you, just like your anger is, just like what lights you up is. And you've taken certain parts of that and you've deemed it as your monster. And and then you've told yourself that I need to reject myself in order to be a good man. I need to reject those parts of me in order to be okay. And that's the recipe for weakness. That's the recipe for like not self-acceptance. And then that's the recipe for compliance in a relationship. Um, do you understand what we're saying with that?
I'm kind of following along. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love your
go.
shadow. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, good, perfect, Brandon. I kind of want to go down that road a little bit further, but before we do that, I just want to just kind of put some principles around what you're saying a little bit further in the book you've been recommending lately, Brandon, the masculine in relationship. He talks about three things that a man, the masculine, can provide in relationship to his wife. And one of them is to respond and not react. And what you're saying, Brandon, is that when I come to know myself, when I come to accept the fact that I'm a sexual being with a certain set of sexual feelings, when I'm capable of being angry or fired up or excited about something, and I know that I'm capable of those things, and then I can choose to act on them in the appropriate places, that actually creates safety in a relationship. That actually creates like strength in the relationship because now I know that I'm capable. Like we know, Peter, like I'm with you, man. I've done terrible things too. Like we have effed things up really bad in our lives, Peter, you and me both. All right. Um, and I spent the majority of my married years before I figured out recovery trying to please my wife by rejecting all of these parts of me that I hated. And it was only when I was forced to have to come to grips with those things and not kill them, not get rid of them, not hate them, but say these things are trying to serve a purpose for me. And it's my choice with these things that has caused the damage. It's not the things themselves. And the things themselves can be harnessed. It's like water going through an electric dam, right? It's gonna bring power and energy, electricity to the relationship and to your life if you are willing to go into the dark places and learn what they've been trying to offer you without having to act on them all the time. That's what creates response versus react. You've been living your whole life probably very even keeled. So this probably hasn't made sense to you because you're like, I always just kind of chill and relax. I don't get too mad too often and I don't blow my top too much. So I'm always responding. That's not responding. That's still reacting because you've been doing it to please and to avoid rejection, even though you've been rejecting yourself all along.
Responding in truth, not responding out of fear. That's reacting.
That's reaction.
Yeah.
Yep.
Responding in the truth of who you are and knowing who you are and stepping into that actually gives you a chance to build trust and safety and connection with the feminine. Now, I want to ask you something, go back to something here. Um, and this is going to sound like a dumb question, but I'm just going to ask you. Do you have epilepsy?
Yes.
You do. Okay. Can we get around that?
Yeah.
Well, can we get around the fact that you have it?
Yeah. Right now it's controlled well with medication, so it's not really a problem anymore.
Okay. But you still have it.
Mhm.
You're controlling it with medication.
Yeah.
You had to accept that you had it in order to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
So
I,
there's
I
this
say now it's just become part of life. Other people, when I tell them like that sounds very hard. And for me, now I've had it most of my life, and I can say that's just part of life for me.
when you were having the seizures, did you need extra help?
Yes.
You did. That can we get around that fact?
Yes.
Well, we can't. You did need extra help, Peter.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? We can't get around the fact.
You
You
needed
needed
the
extra
help.
help. So then it's your choice how you want to interpret that. And that's where your power comes in. And the way that I'm seeing you interpret that is I'm weak because I needed extra help and I need, like, and so then you start to put meaning and identity to that experience versus, and we could think something totally different about that if we wanted to. We could go anywhere with those thoughts. Um, but you're finding ways in order to break yourself down and say, look how weak I am. You know, Peter, I wet the bed until I was in fifth grade. I know you might not want to know that, but
We're all going to get
uh,
vulnerable today, Peter.
but I wet the bed till I was in fifth grade. Now I could take that and just make all kinds of stories up about who I am and what I am and why that happened, blah, 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 blah. Or I could just be like, yeah, my brain didn't develop and an ability to like give me the alarm to get up at night until I was in fifth grade. And that's all it was, right? Do you see how we create our own trauma from the experiences of our life? We create our own suffering.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Peter has epilepsy. Peter had seizures as a child. Peter needed help. That is all true. And that is all okay. That's okay.
That has
And it
nothing to
doesn't
do with
mean that you're weak.
masculinity.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, Brandon, like as you're talking, it's like I'm trying to step more and more into my own masculinity every single day in my own recovery. Like it's part of my goal, it's part of my target. And one of my current targets right now in life to develop my masculinity, this is going to sound weird, is to try to always say yes when someone offers their help. Because I've spent my whole life refusing people's help because I always felt like it was weak to accept their help. And in reality, I was actually damaging my relationships with my friends and family because I was always dismissing what they wanted to offer freely, which meant I was also dismissing the gift of connection that they were offering. And it was all from a core belief that was like, accept help, and that means you're weak. That means you're inadequate. That means you're not lovable. And here I am now 20 plus years into my own recovery, finally figuring out I can still be masculine and accept help. Like that's okay. It's okay. In fact, it's good for relationships sometimes to receive help when
It's
people want to
pretty
offer
it's
it.
pretty weak to never to not have the strength to accept it.
That's a whole different story right there, right, Brandon?
Yeah.
And that's probably closer to the truth, what you just said. But that's where, Peter, you've been living your whole life, not even pausing to question the line of thinking that's gone along with the life experience. And that's what I think you're getting at, Brandon, is how does Peter then start to become aware of that line of thinking? And then what does he do with it when he starts to recognize that that line of thinking doesn't have to necessarily be true?
Yeah. First you get conscious. You've got to start to get conscious of these stories that you're telling yourself, Peter. Um, and I get very aware of it, of like, oh, there it is. There's me thinking I'm weak, or that I always need help, or that I'm a disappointment. And you can take that and you can say, I'm gonna go somewhere else with this. Oh, I had a sexual thought. Well, I'm a disappointment. I'm bad. I'm weak. This is a monster. I'm gonna try to think something else about this. What else could you think about that, Peter?
Well, I know lately, with everything going on, being kind of torn down to a new reality, I have been asking for a lot of help from a lot of people. I've had a friend that I've been able to stay at his house and he supported me for a few days. I have a lot of guys in recovery that are now complete full supports, and I love them to death. They are true brothers. And so I wouldn't say out of necessity, but well, almost out of necessity, I am now having to ask for help in many different ways.
Excellent. And how do you feel about that?
Um, I would say in the past I would have felt more vulnerable, but now I'm just feeling the love, the brotherly love, from all these wonderful people helping me out.
Excellent. You're working with a therapist pretty closely,
Mm.
and are you doing parts work?
Say that again.
Are you doing parts work?
Explain that a little bit.
Um, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're probably not doing parts work. Um, but I would say that it could be really good for you. Ask your therapist about internal family systems and get to know those parts really well. That helps you get conscious of things and really get to know yourself. And then in those moments you can catch yourself and say, "Oh, that's what's going on here. I'm gonna shift and try something different." So ask your therapist about internal family systems.
Peter, are you working with McCall or John?
Um, all right, one-on-one with McCall and then group with you and John.
Okay, yeah. So your one-on-ones with McCall. McCall is highly trained in IFS. So just ask him about it. He's the perfect guy for you there.
Excellent. That's good.
Awesome.
So Peter, I also want to kind of keep following up here. You mentioned a couple of these places where you felt compromised, where you feel like a disappointment. Nobody likes to feel like they've disappointed or let down somebody that they love. Um, the problem with any relationship, and in particular a marriage, is that marriage on both sides comes part and parcel with letting the other person down, even despite your best efforts. Have you ever worked really, really hard at something, Peter, like really trying to please your wife, only to find out that everything you did just caused more damage?
Yeah, yeah. There are some things that I thought were helpful that were actually almost the exact opposite.
But you were doing it like with great intentions, with only wanting to make her happy, and somehow you still messed it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Guess what? Whether it's in this current relationship you're in or in the next one, that's going to be part of your relationship. And the question has to become how Peter can you go from being so afraid of disappointing or letting someone down to accepting that it will happen and that it doesn't have to mean that you are as a person a disappointment.
I'm learning now that I guess I'm having to understand now that yeah, I'm not a monster. I'm a man that makes mistakes, and I'm sure I'll make a lot of mistakes in my life, and I can learn from those mistakes, however much they may suck.
And how are you going to learn from them, Peter?
Well, I've learned, so I guess one that comes to mind is as far as my love language is very service oriented. Someone helping me with something, I feel the love and the support. Whereas my wife was very like, I would like cuddles, I'd like to be together. Um, and so in the start of our marriage, I would do the dishes, I would clean the house, thinking I was speaking my love language, but I was not speaking hers. And so that's something that took me a long time to learn and understand, and that did push us apart in our relationship.
Now that you recognize it, you can step in differently
Yeah, yeah,
and it doesn't have to define you.
yeah.
Peter, as we're talking about this, I have a few things that I want to kind of outline to really embrace your masculinity. But I want to ask you first, as we're talking about this, how are you feeling?
Um, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling
Okay.
okay.
Okay, good. Sounds like you've made some good progress with this in the last little while. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say in the last 2 months, I've made more progress than I have in the first 2 years of recovery.
Love it. Good work. That's awesome.
Is that does that coincide with the strain and stress in your marriage to where it's moving towards divorce?
I would say yeah. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, the ability to be a good husband is kind of going away, so I can focus on being a good man and a good father, and I'm having to learn how to do that. Facing who I am and knowing what I want to become.
It's a weird thing to say, Peter, but I see this so much with so many of the people that I work with is that when we've been living in a certain realm, and that realm happens to include a place where we've looked to find our value, in this case, maybe our spouse or our wife or, our parents or somebody else, it's their their presence is so full that it's actually blocking out. It's like an eclipse to what the actual truth is, which is an actual real relationship with a higher power. And your wife now moving to a space where she's now moving to the peripheral is now letting you have this wrestle with something bigger than her. And you're starting to find, you said in 2 months, you've had more progress than you have had in 2 years. And part of it's because she has been moved to the peripheral instead of to the forefront. Now, you can do that inside of a relationship or outside of a relationship, but that's part of the wrestle here. Is it that a guy, the only thing that matters is the man looking back at himself from the mirror and his relationship with things bigger than himself. And you have to take a look at all those other things that might be your God right now and ask, what are they doing for you? But what are they doing to prevent you from being able to just look at the guy in the mirror and like what he sees? And if you'll submit yourself to that process over and over again, a little bit at a time, you get to a spot where a little bit down the road, a few months, a year, a couple of years down the road, you start to actually really, really like what you see in the mirror. And then that starts to actually go out into the world and create something new, something fresh. It's how you up your level of energy that you're living from. And so in a weird way, it may be a gift that your wife is taking some space, even though it comes with a lot of consequence.
Yes.
Peter, you said something that concerns me. Um, Focusing on being a good man and a good father, and really focusing on what I want to become. That concerns me. Why would that concern me?
Loss.
What?
I'm at a loss. I'm not sure.
I mean, it sounds like a good thing, right? To be focused on
Those are
being a
good
good man.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that's like, let's not start with a deficiency that you need to become something. You are. You already are. Like Peter is the man. Peter is good. Peter is okay in this moment right now. Um, and if you're always trying to strive to be okay, you'll never feel okay. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Start with self-acceptance before you start working toward trying to do something so then you can be good enough. When you're always telling yourself you're a disappointment, then you're always trying to strive to be better. Just be you for a moment. Just be free. Be you. Um, I was watching Tyler. Did you see that Georgia Tech Georgia game?
Oh man, that was a phenomenal football game.
Oh, dude,
It was so heartbreaking for Georgia Tech. I wanted them to win
oh
so bad.
yeah, and that quarterback on Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
So the game went into 8 overtimes. They're playing their rivals, like a big rivalry.
Georgia's
Um,
number 3 in the country. Georgia
Georgia's
Tech's a nobody.
and that quarterback, like he kept getting first downs. Like it was be like 4th and 1, and he'd always like do this little quarterback like read option, and boom, he'd get his first down. And the dude did he look athletic?
No.
Yeah. He didn't look athletic. He just did it his way. He was on the field. He was surrounded by a bunch of people that were cheering against him. Um, and he just stepped into being him and fought his ass off as hard as he could. And it was awesome. I wish he would have pulled it out in the end, but he left it all on the field.
Mhm.
8 overtimes.
Wow.
Um, so why do I bring this up? This is like an example of, as men with our masculinity, how we live our lives. It's a great example of masculinity. And I know it's like football, and that's not what I'm saying.
Mhm.
It's you step on the field or you step in the arena and you be you and you do it your way. And you know who you are and you know your abilities and you know what you can do, and you step into those places. And you don't need to become the big running back, and run just like the running back. You need to run like you in this moment. So, couple of points. Peter, you are good right now. You're okay. Start there. Secondly, so a couple of things to embrace your masculinity. You're already doing it with your surrounding yourself around good men. That's incredible. Secondly, continue to step into the arena. That means you need to continue to practice courage. Like, oh, there's an opportunity to be uncomfortable. I'm going to go do that. And I'm going to do that again and again until I'm pretty comfortable being uncomfortable. Like I can handle this. And third, don't expect to ever get to the mountaintop, and don't expect for it to ever end. It always is going life. You're never going to arrive one day to Peter's masculinity and now I'm good enough. Hey, now this is what good enough means. Let go of expectations, live more in the present moment, accept yourself as you are right now, surround yourself around good men, and practice courage. You do those things and continue to get conscious of what you're creating. You do those things, you will start to harness who you really are and who God made, and you'll get to know who you are, and you'll see your masculinity. Right? You're already in the process. You're doing a great job, Peter, already, especially considering everything that you're going through right now.
That there is a lot on your plate, man. And I know that we haven't even gotten into a lot of the details of your current situation and the battles you're fighting right now, Peter. But to go along with what Brandon's saying, just a really succinct way of saying part of what he was just saying is that when you operate from a place of self-acceptance, the man that Peter is in his self-acceptance is the guy who's going to fight like crazy to be a good man and a good father. So you don't have to perform your way into being a good man and a good father so that you're good enough. When you actually realize you already have the makings, you already have the innate ability to just by being you to be that kind of a father, husband, man, whatever. And when we work from the inside out, it fuels shame sometimes. That's what I think what Brandon's saying.
Yeah.
But what I love what he was saying with such passion about that idea that you, Peter, you're going to have to come back to this over and over and over again. Oh, I'm living from the old way of being. I don't want to do that anymore. I'd rather live from this place of being or believing. That means I'm going to have to take a courageous action. That means I'm going to have to reach out to one of the guys in my group for help, or I'm going to have to go a little bit deeper in my one-on-ones and actually go confront some of those places that I've been running from for a while. I'm going to have to actually have the courage to practice offering acceptance and kindness and compassion to myself in the midst of my mistakes, which is going to feel really awful sometimes. But if I do that over and over again, I can change it. And Brandon, we've used this quote many times on the podcast, but because you're talking football, it's time to pull it out again for Peter. It's
It's that time of year.
it is that time of year, and it's that famous quote by Vince Lombardi, who is maybe one of the greatest football coaches of all times. And I love this quote and the way it's phrased. It says, I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, the greatest fulfillment of all that he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle. And then there's two dashes, victorious. And I think you can interpret that as he worked his heart out and he won the game, or you can interpret it like the Georgia Tech quarterback. He worked his heart out. He lost the
That dude
game.
was victorious though
He was victorious
within himself.
because the measuring stick is the working your heart out for a good cause on the field of battle. The outcomes will eventually take care of themselves if you get in the habit of working your heart out for a good cause. And you can lie exhausted and go to bed at night on a clear conscience, knowing that you did everything in your power. That is success. That's success. So, Peter, thank you for coming on. Any thoughts or questions before we finish today?
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the things you shared with me, and I'm excited to be able to go back and review this again.
Peter, you're the man, and I'm not just saying that. You're you're an awesome man who's willing to look within. And I'm sorry for your pain and the things you're going through right now. But you're strong and you're going to work through this and you're going to come out of this stronger. And so really appreciate you coming on and being vulnerable and sharing. You've really helped other people today as well.
Appreciate you coming on, Peter. I know you a little bit because you just started attending one of my groups, and I like what Brandon asked you because I'm probably going to get to see it as you develop into it. I can't wait for the day that you come to group and somebody says a comment that they're trying to help you with, but it's not that helpful, and you actually stand up for yourself and you push back and you have a little fire in your belly. I can't wait to see that. Maybe you'll do it to me. I hope I say something that's totally wrong and you just
Tyler's
totally
going to
push
try to
back on
piss
me.
you off.
I can't wait to see that fire come out in you, Peter, because I know it's there. So thank you for being here. Thank you to our listeners and watchers for being here and for participating. We just got a question right at the end there that could be its own whole podcast. What do you do if if the woman you are with if the woman you're talking to pulls back?
Let's save that for another episode.
That's a whole other episode. I'd love to have Orange Grove come on and talk about it. But we could also cover it in another episode too. But thank you for being here. If this is meaningful to you or would be meaningful to somebody else, would you please pass it along? That's how it helps us reach more people. And thank you, you guys. Until next time, keep on keeping on.